So I got this comment on Facebook. What does it feel like to have osteomyelitis in your spine? Did you have any symptoms beforehand? Answer: yes. Absolutely the worst pain I've ever been in. But I didn't know what was going on. So here's the story. Okay, so around August 2016, the people a few doors down got evicted, and you know those big old school, like, big plastic houses that are for kids that are outside? I think they used to be like yellow and blue or something. They got the little windows you can open and shut, you can open and close the doors, like little tykes or whatever. Well, one of those got thrown out, so I went down the street and I moved it to my yard because I wanted to get it for my daughter, take it to my mom's. So when I bent down to pick up this house, I heard a crack in my back and it was just really painful. So I was like, but it wasn't as bad as it got. It was just kind of mild pain and I was kind of stiff, whatever. So I just assumed, I threw out my back. The next day, I woke up and could barely move. I was in so much pain. So I kind of got up, did some substances to feel a little better. Next day, it was still the same story. I woke up, could barely move. So my neighbor decided to give me a back brace to put on, maybe I just threw out my back or something. So I put a back brace on and I slept in it. The next day, I woke up and I was screaming in pain. I was in so much pain. I couldn't move, I couldn't roll over, I couldn't do nothing. So I waited a couple more days in that pain to see if it got any better, and it did not. So I ended up in the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they informed me that I had a UTI that I didn't know I had. They did a CT scan, they gave me tramadol, which actually stopped the pain, which I was seriously on hella drugs, and I was really worried about that. I'm like, you're gonna give me something ain't gonna do nothing, but it did. It took away my pain, at least for the amount of time I was in the ER. They did a CT scan, and they told me that my kidneys and my liver were swollen, but they gave me some, Bactrim antibiotic, and sent me out the door. The second I hit that waiting room, dude, I was on the ground, in tears, couldn't move. I was literally curled up in a ball, and Sam's like, get up, get up, get up, get up. I'm like, dude, I need to go back through here. There's something not right with me. There's something not right with me. And Sam was threatening to leave me there if I didn't get up, stop acting a fool, when I was literally dying. Because when I went to the hospital, I thought it was kidney stones or something. So eventually I went home and wrote it out. I was in pain, so much pain. Every time I walked from one end of the house to the other, I was, I had my dad yelling at me. I had Sam yelling at me to shut up. But every time I said, I might need to go to the hospital, everybody's like, no, you don't need to go to the hospital. The hospital's not going to do anything for you. And you know why they said that? Because I was the money getter. I was the one that was getting everybody. If I wasn't around, everybody was gonna be sick as fuck. September rolls around, towards the end of September, and I ended up in jail because Sam outran the police, and the police knew who he was, but they couldn't find him, so they came and arrested me for my warrant. So while I was there, when my body was in detox, I couldn't even walk. They got me a wheelchair, brought me to medical. I was in so much pain. I think Sam took his dad's credit card and came and bonded me out or something like that. So when that happened, Sam was still wanted, so we literally had to leave our house in Warren and go back to Detroit so he wouldn't go to jail. So we ended up back at the infamous Caldwell house. That's when I felt my kidneys they were chugging, whoo, 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 and it was just throbbing with pain. And so eventually I went to Beaumont, and they were like, oh, there's nothing wrong, you just have a UTI, da, 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 da. But I couldn't walk. And at this point I developed hip pain. It went from my back to my hip to where I was limping to where I could barely walk. So when we left Beaumont, we left with a wheelchair. Don't worry, we brought it back. During that time, we were literally taking the bus and walking from Hamtramck to Ferndale so we could sit at McDonald's, use the Wi-Fi, and make money. So the next month and a half, Sam was wheeling me around in this wheelchair, and we were getting on the bus with it. It was a mess. I was literally living in this wheelchair. I remember Sam getting so mad at me when there was nothing I could do. I couldn't walk. He wanted me to hustle. I just wanted to lay down and literally unalive. So it was like the middle of the winter time. It was, I want to say, end of January, beginning of February. I was walking down my porch stairs and it was icy, and I fell and hit my back and slid all the way down, and legit didn't have feeling in my legs, didn't have feeling. Sam got back and I'm like, I really need to go to the hospital, and I was dizzy. I knew, like, at the time I didn't know, but now, dealing with the health issues I have now, I know my blood pressure was dangerously low. And I argued with Sam for about 2 hours about going to the hospital, and he ended up taking me down the street, and we went to Johnny's. He's like, well, maybe you just need to warm up. So we went to the Coney Island, and I told him I need an ambulance, and he's like, no, he wouldn't call. So I got a bystander, to call the ambulance. When they got me in the ambulance, they couldn't get a blood pressure on me or a pulse. Sam eventually sucked it up, and he got in the ambulance with me, and we rode to Detroit Receiving. When they brought me in, they tried to take my blood pressure and pulse, and they couldn't get it at the hospital, and the EMS said we couldn't get a reading either. So they started calling all these codes and rushed me back to trauma and started cutting my clothes off me, putting all these warm blankets on me because I was like froze. I didn't live in a house with heat or power, and it wasn't real to Sam until they rushed me back into trauma. Detroit Receiving was the only hospital that ever made me comfortable, as far as giving me certain medications to make me comfortable so I don't withdraw. They could see that there was an infection somewhere because of my blood draws. They did an MRI on my spine, found an abscess in there with osteomyelitis. Took a minute to actually figure out what the infection was because the cultures wouldn't grow. So after they got the MRI results, they did spine surgery, removed the infection. The day before they did that, they had to put a kidney stent. So I had 2 surgeries in 2 days. They had to put a kidney stent in my kidneys because one of my kidneys was like 2 or 3 times the size of my other one, which is the kidney chugging I felt that, the hospitals told me was nothing, and I'm fine. So yeah, it's very painful. Very painful. Like, you will know for sure.